In this lesson, we'll continue to look at the evidence for retrieval practice as an effective study strategy, and we'll compare it directly to concept mapping. Now, concept maps show how concepts are related to each other by using links that express the relation between concepts. It is thought to enhance learning by creating multiple links between concepts, which facilitates later retrieval. In addition, it can establish links between new information and prior knowledge, which helps to integrate the information into semantic memory. It's a technique of elaboration, and psychologists would say elaboration is one of the ways we do deep processing, an effective way to learn information. A concept map might look like this. These are terms, these are concepts in the scientific method. So an experiment is used to test a hypothesis. An experiment produces results. Experiment has a control condition, it has a variable, it has an experimental condition, etc. So concepts maps then are these webs of concepts, and they are linked in many different ways, and the idea is the more links that we can make between concepts, then we'll be able to retrieve that information better at later times, because we have more ways to activate concepts if we have it well integrated into our semantic memory. So let's see what happens when we pit retrieval practice against concept mapping. So here's a study. Group 1, they're going to study the text material once. Group 2, study the text material repeatedly. So it's like a study condition. Group 3, study the text material and make a concept map. So study the text once and then make a concept map. And Group 4, study text material and practice retrieval once. All groups made judgment of learning predictions and tested 1 week later on the recall of ideas in the text. Now, the actual results were as follows. There were verbatim questions, so these were questions where the information was directly stated in the original text, and then inference questions. These questions required students to make inferences from the material that they studied. Let's just take the verbatim questions. In the study condition, we see the proportion correct here. Repeated study shows an advantage similar to concept mapping. You'll recall, though, that this is the condition where they study once and then just do a concept map. This is repeated study, so we see similar performance. But notice who wins the competition? Retrieval practice outperforms even concept mapping or repeated study. And that is true not only for questions that was getting at information directly in the text, but also questions that required students to do some reasoning about the information that they read. What did students predict? Again, like in other research, they predicted that retrieval practice would be the worst for their future performance, and that the study and the repeated study and concept mapping would be better approaches for learning the information and retaining that information a week later. Now consider study 2. It's the same idea as study 1, but the final test was not retrieving as many ideas as possible, but rather making a concept map, the very thing students did for the learning phase in Group 3. Here the results again are interesting. Actual performance. So for proportion correct of the ideas that were incorporated into a concept map, for the students who actually did concept mapping during the learning phase, they did not do as well as the students who were doing a retrieval practice during the learning phase. They actually predicted the opposite, though. They predicted that concept mapping during the learning phase would be a very good technique when the test was a concept map. But it turns out that retrieval practice is actually a good study strategy, even when the test is a concept map. So retrieval practice leads to deep processing so that knowledge can be accessed and retrieved even when the testing condition is different from the learning phase. Unfortunately, we know that students underutilize testing as a learning technique. They might use it to assess knowledge at the end of a study session, but too often they do not use it during the study session.